Hello, fellow agents of infinity, and welcome back to It's Nothing Personal, the podcast where I attempt to turn random conversations with average, everyday people into moments of extraordinary vulnerability, insight, and connection. I am your host, Mason Robin. I would actually like to do something a bit different with this episode than what I am typically aiming for. I would like to send a message directly to you all and get you up to speed with some things that have been on my mind and how I've been thinking about this little side project of mine. So I have an unscripted message, just speaking to you guys. I tried the whole scripting my content thing, and that felt really fucking weird, and I think it kind of sounded awkward too, so we're not going to do that again. I'd like to take some time, first of all, to say Happy New Year. I hope the first few days of 2024 have gone well for you. I hope you've started taking some definitive steps in the direction of the things you would like to accomplish this year. And I hope you continue taking those steps and meet all of the resistance the world offers you, all of the challenges, all of the setbacks. Meet all of that in stride and put some resilience and some conviction and some constitution into practice along your way to reaching the vision of the resolutions you've set for yourself. And on that note, I would like to open up a short, hopefully short, declaration of my own resolutions. Now, New Year's resolutions are the type of thing that for most of my life I didn't see much value in. My basic position on them up until I guess about 3 years ago was, well, why wait until the new year? Why wait for the turn of the year to decide I am going to start making necessary changes to better promote the type of lifestyle or health or longevity or experience that I envision having for myself? Why wait until the turn of the new year to start making a change? Why not do it now? And I always also, I think we all have a sense of that there are a lot of people who set New Year's resolutions and New Year's goals and don't quite follow through all the way. And the form that a lot of people's New Year's resolutions take is not the type of thing I've adopted for myself in my own practice of New Year's resolutions. So, I think we're all familiar with the types of resolutions where people will say, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to run a 5K, or I don't know. They set some maybe not so arbitrary, but at least seemingly arbitrary measuring point for keeping with their New Year's resolutions. Like maybe, oh, I want to read a book every week, or things of that flavor. And I believe in a way the quantification of our resolutions makes failure to meet them much more visible, right? And it also, I believe, puts an undue pressure on the process of effective application of our resolutions, right? Because most of us, at least I believe, tend to be our
harshest critics. So for myself, and I think this year, 2024, I can't remember exactly. It's either the third year or the fourth year that I've had a New Year's resolutions practice of any sort, because that, my former belief on the matter was that it was kind of ridiculous. And I still don't hardline practice New Year's resolutions. I am very much the kind of person who, when I want to make a change, I don't wait on the new year to do it, right? At the same time, I do believe that New Year's resolutions can have a lot more power and impact as a tool we use to ground ourselves in a greater sense of intention and commitment to our own values, right? A greater sense of conviction and a greater alignment with our own sense of integrity through the way we live. And this is kind of how I utilize New Year's resolutions as a tool. It's to orient myself. How am I going to meet the next year of my life? And I usually start thinking about New Year's resolutions about a month in advance, and also begin implementing the necessary practices to make my New Year's resolutions an effective practice before the turn of the new year. However, as we transition into the new year, or as I transition into the new year, I make sure to spend those first few weeks really grounding myself in what these resolutions mean. So, for myself this year in 2024, my New Year's resolution is pretty simple, but it has broad potential for application in many dimensions of my life. The New Year's resolution is I want to do a better job of trusting my gut, trusting my instincts, listening to my own sense of intuition. I just turned 30 a couple of weeks ago, and in the weeks leading up to that birthday, realized I've done a bad job my entire life of listening to my intuition. And in hindsight, as far as I can tell, my intuition has pretty much always been right. I've just, as I said, done a bad job listening to it. And so, yeah, I want to do a better job of listening to the wisdom of my organism instead of relying on the rationality behind the thinking, reasoning, analytical part of myself. Become a little bit more feeling, learning to hear what my body is saying and to listen to it, and to not necessarily have to build a story around it to see its validity and to see its potential for meaningful, impactful, positive application in how I'm moving through my life. So a lot of the reason I'm bringing this up is because there is fair and pointed application of this resolution in how I'm doing this podcast. A big part of why I'm having this episode is to kind of flesh that out and explain this to you guys. So, one of the things I've noticed is that, and just to clarify, I haven't counted, but it's somewhere between 20 and 25 episodes that have already been recorded of conversations I've had with people that I've had a reluctance sharing many of them. And one of the things that I've come to understand, or at least believe, is that that reluctance in itself can be an indication to me that this is exactly the thing that I need to be doing is sharing these episodes. And like I have understandable reservations for wanting to share. It's so a lot of these episodes have not quite taken the form of the content I aim to produce, the content I aim to deliver to you guys. Because really, at the heart of this, I want to bring other people's stories to you. And that's something I'm working on getting better at, right? Very intentionally, I'm working on getting better at doing that. However, by consequence of my nature, um, I tend to dominate conversations. I can be pretty long-winded, and obviously I can speak. I can speak for quite a time uninterrupted. Um, so it's a very intentional practice for me, not only asking the right kind of questions to invite someone else into the space to share, but also to just shut my fucking mouth and listen, right? Because I do this thing where, and it's necessary for me a lot of the time to check back with the person I'm communicating with to make sure I actually understand the story that's being told. And I can only do that through my own language, right? So when I am trying to meet someone else where they are, as long as I don't trail off and go on a 6-minute monologue about my story and try to relate it to theirs, even if it's just me trying to connect with them, sometimes I could be long-winded enough, and if I let myself get off track, I will dominate the conversation, right? So I do think it's necessary and important that, yes, I make sure I'm following the story, the communication that I'm receiving from someone else by using my own language to convey their communication back to them and say, yes, we are on the same page, we have an understanding. That's necessary. But a lot of the time that gets off track. And that is something I'm very intentionally working on. But it's just to say that that's all going back. You see how I trail off on a tangent, right? But this is just to go back and say that a lot of these episodes, due to that tendency of myself to ramble on, they end up taking a form that is divorced from the aim, divorced from what I'm shooting at. And so I participate in this process of self-criticism that, really it's the negative self-talk that I impose on myself that is driving this reluctance to share conversations which, in the moment I participate in them, something about those conversations inspires me, minimally, to ask the person I'm conversing with, hey, I do a podcast. Is it okay if I share this conversation? But that can't be forgotten. It can't be forgotten that in that moment, there is something, whatever it may be, something that inspires me to ask, may I share this conversation? And whether it be something I say, a conversation that I more dominate, where it's more me speaking about whatever, or if it's a conversation that I am really excited about and did a really great job, and it was excellent the way that I invited someone else to share about themselves and the amount that I listened and how much I did shut my mouth, regardless of the form that it takes. In every moment where I've thought to ask, where I felt that inspiration for whatever, I think it's important that I connect myself with that moment, that inspiration, the openness that was held within that conversation, the vulnerability, if there was any, whether it came from me or whether it came from someone else, right? The sense of love, the sense of abundance, the sense of freedom, the flow, whatever it was, the peace and the ease of that interaction, whatever seeded the inspiration of that question, there's an intuition to that, right? That doesn't necessarily need to be explained and doesn't need to be intellectualized and doesn't need to have a story around it. That's, to me, the essence of trusting your instincts is being able to listen to the feeling of that. Well, first to understand the feeling of that moment, right? So there's some small piece of narrative, right? But even without the understanding, if you can feel and listen to the feeling of that moment, use that inspiration to make the decision for you. Obviously, not always and everything in your life. Some things do need to be more measured. But this is a big part of it for me, is realizing that, if I really want to commit myself to trusting my intuition, that has to be across the board in everything that I do. Whether it be exercising and listening to my body as I move, whether that be generating, producing, sharing this content for you guys, and scrubbing the narrative that would keep me standing in my own way, scrubbing that narrative, tossing it aside, and listening to the inspiration of the moment where I had the conversation in the first place, knowing that that inspiration is exactly what I want to be sharing with you guys, whether it be the food I eat, whether it be my personal relationships, whatever. The trusting of my intuition, as I've said, it's something that for a very long time, I just turned 30, right? For most of my life, I have done a very, very poor job at. And it's time that changes. And so this is just mostly a description to you guys of how I'm starting the new year and where my head is with producing this podcast content. But I do want to challenge all of you. Given that you do also participate in New Year's resolutions, like I'm not going to tell you should or anything. Live your life how you want to. But if you do, I would challenge you to not only hold the resolution as a reflection of the way you would like to lead yourself moving forward through this year, philosophically, ideologically, emotionally, whatever, in whatever way, not only hold this resolution as a reflection of how you're going to lead yourself through the year, but also be mindful and employing real, actionable strategies, decisions, choices, actions. Employing real actions that integrate that vision for leading yourself through this year with your behavior so that you can actually produce the results that you want for yourself. And even if you do have one of those more quantifiable, I want to lose 10 pounds, I want to gain 5 pounds, I want to read 2 books a month, whatever, if you've slapped a number on it, even if you've done that, there's a challenge there too, is to practice a little self-compassion. Understand no one is perfect. You are not, you never will be, right? And, as long as you're doing your best every day, that's okay. As long as you are committed to the process of this quantifiable resolution, that's all right. And it's okay if you say you wanted to go to the gym 5 days a week and something happened this week and you only made it 4 days. That's all right. Having the grace to give yourself flexibility to meet life's challenges and you know, course correct accordingly. Like sometimes your New Year's resolutions might not be priority number one in every given moment, and they don't need to be, right? Because these New Year's resolutions are for you. They're for you. You don't make New Year's resolutions for other people. Maybe you do, but I think the best New Year's resolutions are the ones you make for yourself. In any case, moving on from what obviously was not a short description of why I'm talking about resolutions, I do want to also explain how I intend to move forward with the content. Now, as I described, I've had some real reluctance with sharing a lot of the content. Um, and it's because I'm not fully proud of the quality of the content, right? It has nothing to do with anyone else because like it's private right now. It hasn't been shared, right? Like the main thing is I'm not confident, I'm not proud of the quality of the content. But I am going to share it, and here's how I'm going to do it. So, if you manage to listen to episode number 3 of my podcast, The Devil You Know, that episode, and I think the ones before it, it was not released completely in chronological order of conversations that I recorded and saved. I've got probably between episode 2 and episode 3, like 8 to 10 conversations that I just skipped, right? Because episode 3 to me, that one was really great. I was really excited about it. I was like, this is good shit, and I just like wanted to get it out. It was great for me, right? That was one of the ones I was confident and proud of. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna separate. I'm gonna use episode 3 as kind of a hinge point, right? Where I'm gonna have all of the unreleased content that I recorded before episode 3 and all of the unreleased content that I've recorded after episode 3. Okay, and here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to release those as 2 separate series. All of the newer content that was released after all of the new content that was recorded after episode 3, I will be, starting next week, releasing those episodes one at a time on Wednesdays. Everything recorded before episode 3, yet unreleased, I will be releasing on Saturdays until I've gotten back up to current, right? So 2 separate series, everything before episode 3 Saturdays, everything after, chronologically, after episode 3, that will be released on Wednesdays. And I'll do that until I catch up chronologically, and then everything will just be straightforward in chronological order. And this is just how I'm going to get through it. So basically the reason I'm doing it this way is because most of what I've recorded after episode 3, from my perspective, is generally of a better quality than what was recorded before episode 3, right? So I'm going to give you the shit I think is good on Wednesdays, and the shit I'm not so proud to share on Saturdays, up until, I get to current with everything. So that's the general plan. Again, I hope everyone has been having a great new year so far. I hope if you have resolutions, you've been doing a good job of meeting them. And maybe share in the comments. If you would like to share your resolutions, then also share how are you going to take the action necessary to integrate these resolutions into your behavior, into your lifestyle, and take affirmative steps towards changing your life in the direction of the future you envision for yourself. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. Great year.